Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining IT-Conductor today. We are going to present the IT-Conductor ChAI, the Change Automation Intelligence for SAP. I'm your guest. I'm actually the host here, Lin Nguyen, CEO, co-founder of IT-Conductor. And today we'll do a bit of an overview on the solution and also show you a quick demo. And today the complete webinar will be recorded and shared. So if anybody misses it, we can get that content out to you as well. So we'll have a little bit of Q&A session as well, just to get a pulse of what you see as challenges today in the transport automation in terms of change for SAP. And I will proceed from here. So what are the challenges of the manual SAP transport automation? So some of these are things that we hear from customers that have been using manual transports into SAP, promoting code throughout their environment. So manual execution obviously introduce delays between the basis team or maybe the change team, also the requester, the developers that request that, and maybe the approver, who is the change management approver. That can have a delay in the process. So getting changes to downstream environment can be a problem in terms of just getting changes implemented. Now, the lack of automation obviously make it difficult to monitor the status. So if you put in a request and you're not quite sure where that request is in the process in terms of being promoted, the lack of automation is not transparent, and the requester then has to wait for maybe basis to let them know that it's done, and then they can let the QA tester or in production for somebody to validate that change. So throughout that process as well, without the automation, there's not a clear way to track the configuration that you put in terms of transporting or the remediation of whatever problems they're trying to fix. The compliance side of things, who's the approver, who's the requester, when was it requested, all of this as part of a feedback loop through the change board as well. So that's introduce risk into your environment, and a change with risk introduces a lot of problem that potentially can bring down systems or make functionality rendered invalid in your environment, or it produces problems in your QA. Right. So also, if you are not using automation, again, we talked about extended processing time. Let's say the basis person is out or the transport team is out. There could be inherent delay in getting that transport implemented downstream in terms of the deployment process. So all of these are typical challenges, as well as being able to track issues when there's a transport that may have a problem, has an error, who's involved, what is the visibility to get it resolved and re-import or re-transport that. Some of the typical challenges there in the transport automation. So at this point, maybe we'll do a quick poll on these challenges that you have potentially in your environment or your customer's environment. We'll share some of the results on that. So what is ChAI, Change Automation Intelligence? I will at this stage show a little quick video that we make. And this is just a high-level video, so just give you a little bit of a flavor. And then we'll go into some live scenarios. So on our transport automation page, there's a little preview of the solution. And I would just take a minute to play this right now, if that's okay.
You've done everything right, or so you thought. But then, one overlooked transport dependency, one incorrect import, one mistake, and suddenly, your production system is at risk. In complex SAP landscapes, even a small transport mistake can trigger a chain reaction of errors, delays, and compliance risks. Manual checks take too long. Errors slip through. And when the stakes are high, there's no room for guesswork. Introducing IT-Conductor ChAI, the change automation intelligence you need to streamline SAP transport management. Engineered to automate transport requests for faster workflows, reduced risks, and complete visibility into every change. Effortlessly initiate a transport request in just a few clicks? Monitor the status of your requests from a single dashboard. Experience seamless execution of tasks using IT-Conductor's native workflow orchestration. From sending email notifications to approving requests, IT-Conductor ChAI takes the complexity out of SAP Transport Management. And to ensure you have complete control, ChAI provides real-time tracking and documentation of every transport, with change audit reports, designed to ensure compliance and protect data integrity. Say goodbye to transport failures, and embrace the power of change automation intelligence. With ChAI, you can relax knowing everything is running as it should. Ready to transform the way you manage SAP Transports? Visit our website and start your free trial today.
Oh, that's just a quick one. Hopefully, you get the idea. Let's go back to what ChAI is. So, the end-to-end transport automation really solves a few problems here. Is orchestration. You putting in a change and you're automating the full life cycle from the request through the approval and then through the deployment of that change. What we do is try to reduce the error and the downtime associated to those pain points related to inconsistency or even people being available to implement those change. And you can implement this solution across all your SAP landscape, all the ABAPs stack, and you can have automated changes going into multi-environment, orchestrated, automated, on schedule. So the workflow in itself are part of the approval that requires for basic compliance in your environment. So if you are trying to approve production, you can have the logic to approve production changes, maybe from dev to QA. You don't need approval, and the requester can automatically submit the change, get through the process so that the QA team can test. These integrations that we have with IT-Conductor into multiple tools downstream, including Service Desk, if you're using ServiceNow, etc., and you're capturing maybe a problem was reported by the customer, and now you're fixing and you're deploying the change, that ticket then can also be referenced in the change automation intelligence. It's part of the capture of the request. Okay, now you have real-time visibility into the workflow. So we provide dashboards, we provide notifications, and then audit trails. And so completely showing you the end-to-end process from requester to the approver, and then also down to the job itself that goes into the target system, and also the success rate or error, including logs. Okay. Now what that does is now IT-Conductor not only does SAP changes, but SAP is just one of the activity. As IT-Conductor as an orchestration, we can implement ChAI for change management across things like configuration management. Maybe your environment requires a patching, taking system down for maintenance. These are all types of changes, or maybe even deploying system as part of infrastructure as code. Applying an SAP kernel could be a change. These type of automation activities are the deployment part of the whole sequence, right? But first there's a request, there's approval, and there's the monitoring of the actual change itself. So SAP change management is just a use case for ChAI. ChAI goes beyond that to complete configuration management, deployment, infrastructure as code, DevOps type change management. Okay. So at this point, let's take another poll right here. And today, we want to know how your environment is managing transports requests, whether it's fully automated, semi-automated, using some kind of third-party tool, and or not have one that is structured. So these are multiple maturity phases in the transport automation. So if you got the poll, please just submit. Okay, so I will move on. So how does it work? All right, so IT-Conductor itself is an orchestration automation engine. We do automated requests in terms of getting the service catalog, if you will. Service catalog can have a request, and that request initiate the workflow. Each workflow is an instance of a template, and that workflow then will essentially interact with your end systems, these managed SAP systems, Again, IT-Conductor is a agentless platform. We don't install anything in terms of servers or anything like that. We have a simple gateway that communicates with your system securely. And then what we do is we interact with all of your landscapes. So if you have development, QA, prod, what you have is the ability to then use the workflow with multiple types of change requests. I may submit one to go to QA. I may submit one to go to production. Production will have other logics like approval, might have a time when to go in, or if we have a change, a cab approval time frame, we can schedule those transports to go in that particular change window. We can also use emergency transport. That's very common. If you have a fix that needs to go in and can't wait, it gets approved. We can also have on-demand type. Instead of a schedule, we can say at a particular time, or emergency goes in right away, that type of logic. Okay, so now throughout this process, you're going to get reports emailed out in terms of this change has been requested, this change has gone in, and these are the return code of that success failure. So all the parties involved get notified, and then we can produce reporting, compliance, etc. as part of that process. Okay. So this stage, I will go into a little bit of a demo. So this will be a live section here, and let me get into the ChAI platform. So what you see here is a ChAI management dashboard. This is about ability, like I say, a service catalog, if you will, the types of requests that you allow in your environment. And then you have a section here that does the tracking of transports. You have the panels over here about what source system, how many, so we can track things like transport that went from what system. So you may have, let's say, 3 different landscape. You have ECC, you might have BW, CRM. There'll be separate different source systems. Of course, the target system for them will be different as well. So you have QA, production. In our demo environment, we have development as Z01. We have QA, we have production. All right, and then you also your requester, your developers, your configuration folks, your analysts submit those type of transport requests, and they get corrected as well. So you can see that we track this on a dashboard that's basically updating in real time. You have ability to zoom in to any particular area and see that how it works. So how does the transport work in terms of ability to, let's say, for instance, you want to open a new request. So I did a couple this morning just for this demo. We can put in things like single requests. We have also multiple requests. So if you are doing a couple transport, we can consider that to be mass transports. So these mass transports are a way for us to, let's say you do refresh, you need to put back, 100 transports. And these are a way for us to capture that in one bundle, in one transport request. And that transport report can contain many items that you want to include in that. So it's a one to many. So you don't have to do one at a time. You can do many at a time. Okay, so how does this process work? Let me pick up a couple of test transport. Maybe I'll just do one, and then we can do actually I did one this morning. Let's see. So here's instead of that, what I would do here. So this morning I just did a quick one to QA. QA doesn't need to get approved, so it goes in right away. Okay, so here's where simple QA transport might just take a request, and then it goes through the import process, and then you get the results. So for instance, if you do a simple transport, you might have a couple of transports, you get automatically tracked by the system. It puts into the target system, you have the import logs. You also can get email that goes out to necessary party like the requester. We send these out through email, so you actually get these in email saying, such and such transport has gone in okay. And we also send you the email ahead of time saying, yes, somebody just submitted a request to transport. So this is a simple workflow for a QA type, which is typically how you want developers to be able to self-service, create a transport, and then from that transport, move on and notify the party to be tested once it's ready. right? So this is fully automated. Now, if I go through and say, now I need to submit a transport. Okay, so if I submit a transport, what I do is I go in here. So I have one that I did this morning, so I won't do it again, but I will actually demonstrate to you how this works. So let's just take this transport that's gone through QA already. And if we were to submit a emergency transport to go to production, let's say, okay. So we go into your service catalog. You could then create a service request. You pick your source system. You pick your target system. Right, so development, and then we go on into production. This is an emergency. You can specify a time. So for instance, customers can have rules that we configure, like go in a particular time, let's say 5 p.m. on a Thursday evening, right? Standard, if you get that. Or you can say emergency, put it in right away, or 10 minutes from now. Then you put in your service request. Now, all these can be configured. We can actually associate the transport request to, let's say, for instance, an incident as well. So we can configure fields that show up here that don't currently in this demo. But let's say you want to reference an ITSM system, you can put that request in. Now, I did this morning, so I won't go through the submit this process, but I will show you where it is right now. So in terms of the transport that was submitted using that, I have it down here. So this is the transport right there. So now it's sitting in progress. It's emergency. Well, progress means it's actually not working right now. It's just waiting, right? So you are submitted. But if we click on this and we can see where it is in the process. So here's the workflow, right? The request was initiated, but now it's waiting for approval, right? Because it's emergency, it's going into production. Production requires approval. And we can define by role, by group who are in the approval, like managers or change managers. Okay, so now it's waiting for approval. So what happens is that the manager will get an email with a link to click on. For this demo, you can also be logged on. If you're working in IT-Conductor, you might be logged on and you have a work item in your inbox, your queue. And this work item allows you to then approve. Right, so here I can go ahead and approve. Okay, so we could have a set of change control managers who can approve. And once I approve, okay, that is now approved. No more in the work item. Right. So now we go back to the dashboard. Actually, back to one more step. And that item will start moving because now it's been approved. So while that's being going through the workflow, we will look at some combination of other transport that's gone in the past. So for instance, let's take a look at a combination like a mass transport, right? So you might have dependent objects. Maybe program depends on a table depends on structure, dictionary, all of that item there gets resolved by IT-Conductor because we can bundle transports together and work out dependencies so that when the transport goes in, you have the complete generation and activation of those objects together, right? So now let's say if one of these guys, you can look at import logs, for instance. Now, if something doesn't go right, maybe an object is missing, of course, you get the return code here. You will get notified. This might turn yellow or red. You might actually also see execution log. So we have show you the SAP integration layer, where down to the transport, the TP layer, and show you the actual logs of TP as well. And again, once that gets imported in, you have the notification of the transport sets that's gone in, right? So that's really kind of why this is important, because once you start this process, the workflow will be automated all through the step and you will get notified through that change process. Okay, so let's go back and see where are our transport currently. So it looks like it's still waiting. Okay. While we're waiting here, it's approved now. You see that was not approved before. Now it's waiting for the work queue to be picked up. All right. So at this point, I will show you a quick, let's see, sample of an audit report. So the approval process itself is audited event. And so for an audited event, you will get, let's say, a weekly compliance report sent, what transport numbers, etc., what time was approved, who was the requester, who approved it. So it's blur out is actually from customer. So that's one of the ways for us to show you compliance, and that can be emailed, can be kept on the system for compliance audit type report as well. The change is something that if you're in a regular industry as well, you need to be able to substantiate your change.
SAP Transport Management.
So
in this demo,
we'll
walk you
through one more step right here. So to summarize, and I'll go back to the transport, it's working there. Really, to summarize ChAI is to make it simple but elegant way and configurable to work with your environment and accelerate the process of change, automation, right? And then we also, of course, minimize the manual effort, because IT-Conductor is really built around automation, orchestration, doing it intelligently in a flexible manner with real-time updates and a live connection with your system, and also being able to have compliance built into that process, right? So the visibility of the logs is important, and we can retain that for audit trail purposes, okay? We have also FAQ at this point. You can see we have a wiki on our website that has the most frequently asked question around transport automation. I can show you what that looks like. In fact, we have our docs.itconductor.com is clearly detailed out what we demo, what is the prerequisites required. So for IT-Conductor, we are agentless platform. You simply connect the system. We monitor the system. You can see the ZO2 or the QA environment. IT-Conductor would connect and have real-time data from the system in terms of just an overview of system performance, if there's any errors, logs, etc. That's also part of the monitoring, right? And then once you follow through the configuration process, we apply the templates, and then we configure the workflow to your requirement. And then from there, you simply start rolling out your team as part of groups. We can even integrate into Active Directory, for instance, to onboard users quickly. If you have single sign-on, you have maybe Azure Active Directory, your developers can be part of a group that, and your managers can be a separate part of the group to automate an approval process as well, right? So, so that information is there on our website. Of course, also we have the ChAI is part of SAP Store now. So IT-Conductor is listed on SAP Store as a third-party solution approved for change management for SAP Transport Automation. You can get all that information here on our solution page. And feel free to reach out to us to get a trial going there. And this is a SaaS offering, a service platform. So it's not a product where we install anything on your system. We simply have a gateway and a single transport to enable the functionality remotely. Okay. So this point, I think I would open up for, actually before we do that, let's go back and see where that transport is. There you go. So there's the request that's gone through. It knows it's emergency. It got the import. The import has gone in. And there's the log for the transport. So that's as simple as it gets, right? No logging into SAP, STMS, no doing manual movement of transport files, etc. So at this point, I will actually turn over and see if we have any. I think we have one more Q&A. So what would be considered to be useful for your environment? Just let us know. As far as end-to-end workflow orchestration, IT-Conductor can apply this to many use cases, such as even system refresh. We have automation that can do a lot of the auto-react, auto-recovery. We can do automation for system snoozing. We can do patching. All of that is part of the ongoing IT operations automation process. So he's kind of a quick pulse in that respect. And then just a recap. So expanding the ChAI capabilities. Again, we have full, complete end-to-end visibility as an observability platform. For service orchestration automation, IT-Conductor is not just doing transport, but we're doing many other automation orchestration and full compliance type monitoring with ability to do auto recovery. We have dashboards, KPIs for not only the technical IT operations, but also for business process monitoring, etc., like that. Fully integrated notification, as well as downstream integration into ITSM. All these platforms that can also introduce correlation as alerting and incident management as well. And in the end, automation is really the key for making efficiency out of IT operation, especially SAP with complexity. And we work with both on-prem, cloud, and as well as RISE environment for complete end-to-end orchestration. Okay. So that wraps up our agenda for the day. We hope that you see the value of this solution and give it a try. It simplifies change management as an automation solution.